All right, so we got a pretty crazy story here. So the Dominion voting system court case, the defamation suit against Fox News has been going on, and as part of any court cases, discovery, which is I guess where you look for, you exchange information between people and try to find information to present in court or whatever. I'm not a lawyer, but basically this is a really cool situation because we get a lot of documents and information that we otherwise wouldn't have known. This is similar. I view this similarly, even if like whatever the outcome is, who knows, right? But the information itself is just so valuable, intrinsically valuable, and I take this kind of to like the January 6th hearings, except that wasn't a formal court case. It's actually in the court of law, civil law. But like the information that came out of those hearings, we got all those text messages. Oh, the Secret Service was deleting messages. Pence was saying this. You have the interviews of whoever, Bill Barr and all these Ivanka and all this other stuff. Like that information is just so important because you have deniers of everything, and so it's important to validate. And so what it says is Fox News host executive privately blasted Trump election fraud claims shared on network court documents show. A court filing made public late Thursday shows top executives at Fox News and leading hosts on the network privately dismissing former President Trump's claims of voter fraud in the days that followed the 2020 presidential election, expressing worry about how fact checks of the president's assertions might upset the network's audience. So I very, very closely watched this because I very, very closely covered it. I don't know how many of you guys were in the live election coverage that I did. A lot of viewers. I would have like 1,000 concurrent, like daily, pretty much. So and it was like every day because the election coverage was just elongated because of the COVID pandemic. But it was very big, and so they were in a struggle position because the claims were so obviously bullshit. But the Republicans were just so convinced, the voters, of like the voter fraud thing, that if they were to say anything bad, they would get huge backlash from their own fan base. So it's called a conflict of interest, right? It says top network hosts Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham in text messages referred to the voter fraud allegations made by Trump and his associates as, quote, insane, while network leadership debated how rebuking those claims on the air might hurt the conservative media giant's reputation with its viewers, according to the filing. Correspondence and testimony from top talent and execs at the network were made public as part of an ongoing defamation lawsuit filed by Dominion Voting Systems against Fox News and its parent company, seeking $1.6 billion in damages for what the voting software company says was Fox's broadcasting of information about it that the network's leaders knew were false. Fox's legal filings and public statements has countered the president's allegations about voter fraud were newsworthy, but has so far unsuccessfully moved to have the case dismissed on First Amendment grounds. There will be a lot of noise and confusion generated by Dominion and their opportunistic private equity owners, but the core of this case remains about freedom of the press and freedom of the speech, which are fundamental rights afforded by the Constitution and protected by New York Times versus Sullivan, the network said in the statement responses to the revelations. New York Times versus citing New York Times versus Sullivan here is so laughable because Trump wanted to open up the libel laws. So New York Times versus Sullivan is like this super landmark case where it makes it really, really difficult to actually sue public figures because you have to prove like actual malice. I'm not exactly sure what that term actually means, but at the time before New York Times versus Sullivan, actually, there was a lot of chilling of speech by governments that were, who were anti-civil rights, and so they would quash basically any pro-civil rights like news networks by preemptively filing lawsuits and stuff like that. And so the New York Times versus Sullivan case made it so that it's a really, really high bar at this point to be able to prove defamation. It's insanely high, basically, because you have to prove actual malice. And again, I don't know exactly what that phrase exactly means. I don't think it means what it sounds like. It says the correspondence and testimony are made public this week, some of which was redacted and first reported by the New York Times, provides the most detailed accounting yet of how top brass at nation's leading cable news channel struggle to cover election fraud claims. Sidney Powell is lying, by the way. I caught her. It's insane, Carlson wrote in one text message to Ingram, the court filing shows. Sidney is a complete nut. No one will work with her. Ditto with Rudy Giuliani, Ingram responded. Carlson wrote back, it's unbelievably offensive to me. Our viewers are good people, and they believe it. Yeah, your viewers are not good people. He's lying. Tucker Carlson is lying. He doesn't believe that shit. Tucker Carlson is a fraud, too. He's lying. He doesn't believe that at all. On November 21st, Carlson texted an unidentified Fox employee that it was shockingly reckless of Powell to claim the election had been stolen from Trump. So Sidney Powell was a true lunatic. I remember she was going on Fox News or whatever and saying like, oh, it was going to be biblical, the stuff that she had found. It was like her and Lynn Wood, I think was his name or something like that. I don't know, Lynn Steele or whatever his name was. But I remember Steven Crowder getting really angry at Tucker Carlson. He was really going off on Tucker Carlson because Tucker was like, hey, like, I don't think this is really proven. He was like, oh, like, come on, dude. So there was like serious battle within the conservatives for this. Um, Attempts to fact check claims of voter fraud coming from Trump and his associates on air also did not sit well with some leaders of the network, the filing shows. On November 9th, the network was broadcasting a White House press briefing during which Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was making false statements about voter fraud. Host Neil Cavuto cut away, telling his viewers he could not, quote, in good countenance continue to show you this. Raj Shah, a Fox Corp executive, wrote to a network leadership after the episode saying Cavuto's actions represented a brand threat, according to the filing. November 12th, after Fox News reporter Jackie Heinrich published a tweet disputing claims from Trump about Dominion, outlining how elections officials had determined the company did not engage in voter fraud. Carlson sent Hannity the reporter's tweet saying, please get her fired. It needs to stop immediately like tonight. It's measurably hurting the company. The stock price is down. Not a joke. So it's like there's this constant fighting. This is actually going to be really, really good evidence in the case, the defamation case, because it's like if you can prove that they knew it was bullshit, because I think you have to meet like 4 marks. It's like you have to prove that there was like a wanton or like actual malice or something, and then like a wanton disregard for the truth. You have to prove that it actually caused damage to you. Like you can't bring a suit if you can't prove damages. If you just say like, oh, it hurt my feelings, I guess you could try emotional distress, but come on, dude, that's gonna fail. And then there were 2 other requirements. I forgot. I should have looked at the Cornell Law Dictionary before this, but I don't remember what the other 2 ones were. There's like 2 other requirements you have to meet. But the big thing is like if you can prove that they knew that they were lying and it wasn't true, that's a huge dub in your favor for defamation, because it's like you can't really just say freedom of the press then anyways. And freedom of the press is freedom of the press, super fucking important. But it doesn't mean that you can just like lie about people, you know what I mean? Like on purpose, like you can't do that. It says the day before the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox Corp, wrote to Fox News Media CEO Suzanne Scott saying, it's been suggested our primetime 3 should independently or together say something like the election is over and Joe Biden won, adding it would go a long way to stop the Trump myth that the election was stolen. So Rupert is now, he and his media empire are now against Trump. Murdoch wrote on another occasion that claims coming from Giuliani should be taken with a large grain of salt, everything at stake here. Days after the network was the first to call Arizona for President Biden on election night, a move that enraged the Trump campaign, Scott wrote to another network executive criticizing its senior vice president and managing editor in Washington over how the race call was handled, saying she found it astonishing given it was the executive's job to protect the brand. So remember, Arizona was actually first called by Fox News of all people, and Arizona was a battleground state. That was a swing state. It was huge. And Jared Kushner, apparently the reports where he was calling them up like, what the fuck? Like, take that down, snitch. They didn't take it down. So that was a big deal. So there's clearly a lot of fighting going on at Fox News. Fox, in a legal filing, defended itself this week, argued that the network fulfilled its commitment to inform fully and comment fairly on Trump's election claims. It just seems like really weak. It seems like a really weak case on Fox News' part for its defense. I feel like Dominion voting systems has like a lot of legitimate um, claims to bring for defamation, especially because you're proving that they knew it was bullshit and they were covering it anyways. So it's like, dude, you literally have the proof right there. And that seriously caused damage to Dominion voting systems. I mean, like half the country now believes that like the Dominion voting systems are owned by Maduro or made by Maduro or whatever, like crazy dumb shit. So it's like, they definitely have a really good case, but even if they probably settle, so they'll get some money out of it for sure. If not straight out win. If they win, that's a huge W. But then also, it's like all this information that comes out, it's so validating to have like the actual information where you know what's going on behind the scenes because it tells you the truth about what's going on. And knowledge is power, and it's like it's like reassuring, and it's telling us what's actually happening. So regardless, this is just a dub no matter what. But hopefully it keeps going, because honestly, just from like an objective standpoint, Dominion has a serious case here, in my opinion, personally. But I'm not a lawyer though, so I'm not a legal expert. Don't take my opinion seriously legally. You know what I mean? I'm just a layman.